Welcome, everybody. I just want to mention that the time and day is going to, well, the time isn't changing, but the date is going to be changing to Mondays. And after the first hour, I'm going to let you guys know who we have coming up on Monday. And with that, I'm going to let everybody, our host, Av Singh and Leighton Morrison, take it away with James Perkins, who's on with us again today.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Looking forward to today's show. Jimmy Perkins is a dear old friend of mine with many travels over the years, and so it's a pleasure to have him back on. And Av, I open it up to you, my friend.
Oh, you know what? I was talking to Jim just before the show started, and I told him I'm going to be his keenest audience member. Sounds amazing what you're taking on, and it's so timely. You know, when you look at right now, where we're just coming out of this pandemic, I think a lot of people had time to reflect back on their own health, and then maybe even had some challenges with the allopathic medicine or the traditional. I shouldn't say traditional, the conventional medicine approaches. So looking at some alternative ways to regain our health. And of course, what better way than just being out in nature? So, which you know, the examples that we get from nature, and if we can just take those onto ourselves, it's pretty phenomenal. I'm so eager to hear more from you, Jim.
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
No, you're not on mute, Jim. We having a problem with your audio coming back up? No, still can't hear you, brother. All right, well, let's let Jim jump off and jump back on and see if we can get his audio to reset. He was having an issue a little bit before. Leighton, we're also wanting to talk about the soil regenerative course that you have, and I think won't we start there? Well, we're waiting for James to come back on. Oh, hold on. Let's see. Here he is.
Is it good?
Yeah,
you're good.
Now we're good.
All right, we're good. Okay.
All right, so Perky, why don't you introduce yourself, tell them your background, and then we'll dive into the show.
All right, yeah, I mean, that kind of what we were just saying, what you were just saying kind of feeds right into the background. You know, I'm happy to be here, and it's basically a lot of what I'm doing is inspired by what I learned by Leighton and when I started with Leighton. And so I'm a healing, health, and human performance coach. My day-to-day activity is helping people, everything from getting out of pain to high-intensity athletes. I train kind of all of it, and I do it in a way that is essentially trying to restore our innate physiological design. So the domestication of our being has created a lot of a multitude of health issues, from posture to illness, all of it. And so we're trying to get back to nature's roots here and eliminate the compromise of modern lifestyle. And in that, just by observing nature and learning from nature, we're figuring out that nature is our source of optimal health. And the more that we disconnect from it, and not just disconnect from it, but destroy it, deplete the life in it, intervene with it, and contaminate it, the worse of an effect it has on our health. And so I started really on the journey of how can we attack this and provide a new prehabilitative lifestyle instead of causing all these issues and working on all these conventional quick fixes. And the reason I really came across this was at a younger age, about 14 years old, I picked up weightlifting for sports, and I just became obsessed. It kind of became who I was, and I started training people by the time I was 16. I had already been in physical therapy about 3 times, and so I just had this real obsession, fascination with healing, health, and human performance, which is how I sum it up, because it's very vast and diverse with what I'm dealing with. And so I went off to college. I played football. And I was at college. I just had a little medical experience that I turned to some conventional methods, and I realized that the conventional methods caused more harm. They didn't help me, and they actually weren't even necessary. And at that time, I was kind of, I hadn't done too much research. I trusted, conventional medicine for what it is. Not that it's all bad, but there's a lot of compromise in it. And nobody's regarding the natural form of health, the unconventional form of health, which was almost demonized or considered out there to some people, which didn't make sense to me. So I started doing some research. And And that's when I dove down the rabbit hole and realized that, you know, conventional medicine it is not everything it's cracked up to be. Although it's a beautiful thing, we're missing the key components of our foundation of health, and that's the domestication of our life. And the evolution of our being over the past century has been so much more domesticated. So our DNA is not used to this. We are not used to being so stuck in a box, disconnected from sunlight, disconnected from the earth. And then primarily with what Leighton does and what we do now is food, and the contamination in our food and industrial farming, and the impact that that has had on the microbiome, on our mind, body, and spirit. And so immediately I dove down this rabbit hole. And as I'm learning this, Leighton comes to me and says, you know, I heard you're out of college. Like, first off, me and Leighton go back just having deep conversations our whole lives. Since I was about 15, I knew him. And every time I saw him, we just go right down the rabbit hole. I would ask him all these crazy questions about the world, about, you know, aliens, 2012. And then so when he came up with this idea and he started to pursue this, which essentially to me, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Leighton, you kind of observed how screwed up society is and said, you know, why are we so unhealthy, and why are people, you know, so unhappy, and why is everything so contaminated? Why is the most advanced and resourceful society in the history of the world pretty much the most unhealthy and compromised? And he traced it back to soil. And so he went on this journey. He started this journey and he invited me on. He said, hey, this is what I'm doing, and this is why I think soil is really the source of our health. And it added up and matched everything that I had just kind of had this epiphany with. And so the second he did that, I said, oh, I'm on board. I want to learn more about this. And then I learned so much just traveling with him to Pennsylvania and working for him and understanding soils and understanding more about the human microbiome and the synthetic inputs, the chemical inputs that are compromising that. And so I thought, you know, what is more powerful than reversing all this disease, disorder, disruption within the mind, body, and spirit, and starting at soil and tying that to human health all the way through to where we're creating a vision that embodies all of it: soil health, human health, fitness, everything. And that's really where it all started. And then it's built into a vision based off of something that, you know, he created.
Oh, well, I didn't create it. Don't give me too much credit.
Well, you created so my vision's called the Thunderdome, and it's originally an all-purpose positive energy production center designed to elevate consciousness and raise vibration by enhancing connection with ourselves, each other, and the earth, reconnecting us to our natural form, and trying to optimize our health through that. So it's about lifestyle, and it's I'll get into what the vision is a little bit later, but Leighton had designed this facility up in Vermont that was fully sustainable, ecological, super connected facility that had the potential to completely redirect our perspective and approach to healing and health, right? And by reintegrating nature and then regenerating nature and optimizing nature, producing super foods, super health, right? And it was just the coolest facility in the world to me. And that's where the name, he told me about it one day. He had a book this big that showed it. And I said, oh man, that place sounds like the Thunderdome. It's kind of all encompassing, right? You know, people focus on certain areas. Sometimes they isolate what they need to do when they're pursuing health, but it's, you know, it's a big picture thing here. And so how can we look at the big picture from an entire society standpoint and start to make an impact? And when I started to do the research and say, how can we integrate this? You know, I started to learn about regenerative agriculture, regenerative farming, and food production, and what needs to happen in order for that to change. And at the same time, I realized that nobody really cared or knew about it. And when we first started talking soil, and Leighton started talking soil, nobody wanted to listen really. And they wanted to stick to synthetic inputs no matter what the cost was. And it's such a horrible thing that is tough for people to see. So it's tough for people to fully understand the negative impacts of all these synthetic inputs from the ecosystem to us, right? So this facility called the Thunderdome, I kind of said, you know what? I want to build this, and I want my gym, because at that time I'm already training people, I'm already integrating natural remedies, to be the platform for this natural healing. And I also wanted to empower this vision of restoring and regenerating healthy living soils, getting us away from the industrial model that's depleting our ecosystem, depleting our soils, contaminating our health. And, you know, industrial farming, everything from antibiotics to herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, to the contamination in our waterways from it. There's just a multitude of negative effects. Packaging, the way that food is produced right now is extremely suboptimal. And the most optimal way is to use regenerative soils, to use healthy living soils, and do it locally. Less preservatives, less shipping it across the world, less packages. And in that, I said, okay, so we're going to build these little community centers, health centers that offer exercise, education, and events, because, like I said, people weren't interested. And that's what people are interested in. So we're going to bring them in and become their gym, their facility is no longer in a strip mall box. It's in nature, it's in a geodesic dome, and it's going to start to work and raise the resources and gain the community with the surrounding soils and start to create healthy living soils. We can restore contaminated soils. We can just regenerate and continue to make organic soils healthier and healthier. We can add diversity of life and kind of take that step to the next level. Find some passion behind local farming, local food production, regenerating nature within our society, which is something that desperately needs to happen. And so in this pursuit, I thought, you know, we could go off in the woods and build this. And it's like, you know what? People aren't going to leave where they are. And anyone can go out and stay in a retreat and live a healthy lifestyle, but they're in this society, they're in this culture. So how do you re-inject this into culture and bring this into society? And so that's where I really came up with this idea. We're interested in exercise education and events. We have people come in and build a community to generate the resources to start to create healthy living soils and then add diversity of biologicals all around, utilizing Layton's process, which is very simple. And it uses, the baseline is very simple. It's also very, very intricate, as we know. But the baseline process that we created the course about is pretty simple, and it can be practiced by, harvesting the indigenous materials on site and regenerating, utilizing the patterns and paths of nature to fix itself. And so in that pursuit, I realized that local farming is a dying breed. It's struggling. It's, the industrial farms have almost wiped it out. I'm in Florida now, and I have appointments in Central Florida, and I drive by all these farmlands. And nobody's producing anything. There's very little organic, localized food production. And that's because it's been wiped out by this industrial model that's completely toxic. So I figured, okay, well, maybe we can revive all these farms, these local farms, by providing them this attraction, this community center, where they don't have to do all the work themselves. They don't have to restore their contaminated soils because they've been using conventional methods that have failed them, that they've continued to have to use more fertilizers and more product and more resources. And so, I thought this concept could come in, provide that platform, build a community, give them many hands make light work, get them hands on deck, have the resources to start to really set up an operation and expand that operation until that farm is full, and then work into the local community. So working to offer the town, hey, we have this organic product. Stop fertilizing all this land. Stop everywhere. Off the highways, all this grass that you guys are pumping synthetics into. Enough about that. And so we work into the neighborhood. We work into the neighbors. Hey, you guys have land. You want to be a part of our garden program, right? You guys want to start a little organic garden here? We'll provide you the soil. We'll give you some instruction, right? And then we had a program called Eco-Friendly Fundraising, which is a branch off of this, which was designed to partner with schools and programs to have their own vegetable gardens and sell seedlings as a fundraiser for people to start growing more local vegetables and food instead of selling candy bars. Like, we're in this health crisis. Little kids are straight up overweight, obese right now. Their sugar levels are through the roof, and they're selling candy bars, like pushing candy bars for fundraisers. I'm like, this whole thing's unconscious. Never mind school lunches. They're just not fueling our kids. They're like, these kids can digest, they're young. That just doesn't make sense to me. They're young. Let's keep them clean so they don't grow up twisted. And the opposite is happening. And so I guess it was this vision that would just empower local food production, all the way, in every way, shape, and form. And that was built by Layton's concept of regenerating soils. So, and then you get into the fitness side of things. The fitness side of things is very nature-based, like I said, restoring our innate physiological design. But that's in summary of what this vision is about.
I think you missed a piece too, Perks, and that is
I probably missed about 10 because there's a lot of pieces.
You know, I think a really big one was the sound healing. So Perky is a DJ, and he makes beats. And part of the Thunderdome would be having live music, in late afternoons, early evenings, for everybody to come together and party and dance and enjoy their lives. And like he said, in many hands makes light work. So by encouraging these people to come and dance and sing and enjoy themselves, then they'll be like, oh, why here? And what's going on with the garden? And Perky takes them out barefoot and walks them through the garden and says, hey, why don't you come back on the weekend and help us, plant some new, trees or shrubs or whatever, or vegetables. And, his genius on the fundraising was fruit trees. And, when he called me with that idea, I'm like, Perky, this is genius. You're right. The kids, why are they selling candy bars to raise money for the football team? It's insanity. Here you can plant a little tree and actually get something out of it, as well as restoring the soil and providing, carbon uptake. So, again, kudos to him. He's the real genius behind it.
I mean, you're the genius behind it. To me, it's a pretty simple concept. My intellect when it comes to the biologicals isn't too deep. I have a good foundation of it from, being under the microscope with Layton. I understand it. But to me, this is rational thought. This is common sense. And this is looking at things from a big picture. This is observing what needs to happen in society and what the issues are, which people don't do every day. They're very pulled into society. They don't step back and look at it from this wholesome perspective. And when you look at the science, the evidence is clear. Nature is our source of health, and we need to stop contaminating it. Industrial food systems are directly contaminating human health, obviously the environment as well. And that needs to start to change. To add on that, he said the sound healing, right? So a geodesic dome has shown to be the perfect acoustic for sound, and it's like the perfect facility to heal in. Never mind, it's not a box in a strip mall that pulls you out of nature. Getting people's health back to nature is kind of the point, the natural form. So we can have people coming out into this geodome in nature, kind of on a farm, and then having grounding areas. We've seen unbelievable studies in the past 10, 15 years about the effects of grounding and just getting your body in contact with the earth, and never mind healthy living soils, not fertilizers and grass that everybody's got in their front lawn, right? And then, having a platform for all these alternative healers to kind of come to, and these natural remedies and this prehabilitative form of health that doesn't intervene with the processes of nature. When mankind starts to think they're so much smarter than nature and they intervene and they try to force all these things, bad things happen. Bad things show to happen all the time. When it comes to, like, for example, right now, I'm in Florida and there's a red tide, right? And there's a fertilizer plant right down the street, right over the bridge in Tampa. I think it's called Piney Point. And there's an algae bloom going on down here, which was natural. The reasons for the algae bloom could come from several different areas, but the point is they dumped their wastewater, which was contaminated with synthetic nitrogen, fertilizers, all of these things, and that enhanced the algae bloom. And all these fish, they had over, I think, 2,000 tons of dead fish wash up on the beach. And it's like, that's just mankind's ignorance interfering with nature. We need to learn how to align with it, including our own health, and then replicate and regenerate that.
Well said, Perky. Well said. Av, did you want to add anything to what he said?
I don't think this is going to be adding to it, but it just what I'd like to know more about is you mentioned about going to a retreat, right? I think majority of us are living our traditional lifestyle, right? Which is, going to work 9 to 5, blah blah blah. How do you work with the people who, will occasionally slip off the wagon and as nature does, right? In nature, we see things like a fire goes through it, a volcano erupts, or a pesticide spill or something like that. These are things that happen in nature because, humans are part of nature, right? We can't separate ourselves from that, and we shouldn't. We're part of nature. We screw up. How do you work with clients to remind them that your body's the same way? It'll screw up at times, or you'll screw your body up. How do you fix that?
So essentially, you talk about domestication, and in the physical form, it's about optimizing or enhancing our breathing, posture, movement, and resting positions. And then from a nutritional standpoint, it's about eating clean, organic foods that don't have the background of pesticides, fertilizer, insecticides, herbicides, glyphosate, all of it. So I promote real foods in certain quantities at a caloric deficit or at a caloric gain, depending on what their goals are, which changes a little bit of everything. But then I use this system that I call the Tiger Transformation, which restores your innate physiological design. So I try to implement like I said, breathing, our natural breathing, posture, movement, and rest that we would have if we were animals, if we were not sitting in a chair all day, every day. And that really starts at the feet, right? And that starts with the active arches in our feet and the way our feet are utilized. Right now, they're condensed in a little tight toe box. And not only that, our feet are our sensory system to the earth. They're telling us what's going on down there. And we have no connection to the earth right now. They absorb that electromagnetic field, right? And so our feet become essentially dysfunctional. And what that does is they go, you've heard the term flat feet. They get relaxed. They're on cushions, they're on pillows, but we're in an active position. And the inside ankle bone crashes down and the weight crashes in. And that destroys our posture upstream. Hips slide forward. Really, the weight sinks to the heels, the hips slide forward underneath the ribs, and we become kind of this collapsed human being, the way we see a seated chair would create. Now, you go out into the woods and you study the indigenous, which go to movement is where I kind of learned this. And you see a lot of them with more active arches, and they get this almost like little primal stance. Active arch in the feet, little bend in the knees and the hips back because they're absorbing impact. If you were to walk on the earth with shoes, let's say you walk through the woods with shoes or without shoes, would you walk differently? Yes. With shoes, you're not even going to look down. You don't have to. You're just sludging, right? Slamming the heel and not really worried about the way the body's moving because there's nothing sensory system on the earth telling you, hey, that's bad. That hurt. This is suboptimal. Now you got no shoes and you're going to set a bow and you're going to use an active arch in your foot and you're going to lighten that impact by getting your hips back a bit. And this natural shape starts to happen in your leg, right? And so you start to move in this more optimal pattern, which is not linear like this. It's more fluid and light and absorbing the impacts, right? That's our primal state. That's the way we see all things in nature move. And it just so happens the best athletes in the world move that way. The athletes with the most longevity that are 80-year-old marathon runners move that way. And we're all born like that. What's in our DNA. We're natural beings. Our feet have arches, our hips are back, and we walk with these little bows, and then we lean forward with our hips back a bit. It all starts with crawling. And when we start crawling, we develop that long spine, decompressed spine, and leverage going forward. Well, if we get stagnant or we start to go reverse, we get the opposite of that, and all these postural issues come about. So the less locomotive we are, the less connected to the earth we are, the more issues we start to see, which is what this domestication is integrating. So that's what my fitness is based around, restoring that innate primalistic pattern where we should be able to sprint into a late age. We should be able to get supple and just fold to the ground, sit in a rest in a deep squatting position the way they do in other parts of the world that aren't as domesticated, right? And so this Tiger Transformation also has an extras. There's the physiological change, there's the recode, but there's extras, and the extras are essentially sunlight, cold showers, Earth's contact, meditation, and a few more that are basically the reintegration of nature into our lives.
I'm on a grounding mat right now. What do you think of grounding mats?
That is fantastic. For the most part, I think they're awesome. Like the studies have shown that they have unbelievable healing effects, especially on inflammation. even a half hour of being on the ground can reduce your inflammation. I mentioned this in the last podcast. I remember reading an article about a doctor in Alaska, because in Alaska, nobody's touching the ground. Everything's cold. And he built a sanctuary where he was on the earth, and people were healing really bad, powerful diseases. And they was healing them quick. And the only thing he was prescribing them was 3 hours of grounding.
Of course, the Inuit, the indigenous people would have had or have natural fibers and probably ground even through the cold, right? Would that be true?
Yeah, I mean, if they can withstand that and their body's adapted to that, absolutely. Yeah. The way if they grew up walking through the cold and on the ground, absolutely. But we didn't.
And I'd love to throw some 2 cents in on this too. There's been a number of clips running around on all the different social media sites showing a gentleman who actually took metal duct tape, something that you use to tape 2 metal ducts together, and he put it on his bed and he connected it to a copper wire, went out the window and put a grounding spike in, and actually cured himself of a lot of different ailments. That's just one example. There's another one with a woman who pounded in 2 copper pipes into the ground, connected them together, and then wrapped a series of wires around the top of it. And she's actually growing garlic in England, and basically showed that the garlic that was exposed to this grounding was, this far out of the ground, months ahead of the other plants. And she set another test sample, way off in the corner so you couldn't potentially cross-contaminate the control. So there is so much to this that we are not appreciating.
And Leighton, you've talked before about some of the work around and I think that ties in quite a bit, right? So you're getting all these extra electrons through the grounding process, probably addressing a lot of the oxygen-free radicals that we have as humans, but also the oxygen-free radicals that plants have as well, right? So that work that was done highlighting redox, we see the value of oxidation. It's important. Oxygen is important, but to a point, right? It's a great reactive oxygen species are great signalers within the plant, within the human system as well. But then we get too much of them, right? And in our lifestyle, as Jim has pointed out, a sedentary lifestyle, perhaps a more processed food lifestyle, we're going to get a lot more of these oxygen-free radicals. And that's where the grounding comes in, and that's where all these...
Yep. And even to take the natural remedy for that, just talking about getting away from that natural being, when we're grounded, you see that parasympathetic activation of the nervous system and you get more relaxed. And what that does to your breath is slow the breath. And it allows you to enter that deep state of relaxation. We all remember taking naps as a kid when you get really deep in that relaxation, right? That the earth has the potential to allow you to hit that. And when you hit that, your breath, your exhale slows down. And that lowers your oxygen levels a bit and increases your CO2 levels, which is what we need more of. Everybody's kind of living like this, just breathing in all the time, right? So we're over-oxidated, and we need to increase our CO2 levels, which if you ground, it's like the natural remedy. There's that Earth's energy activates that relaxation, parasympathetic, nervous system, and then it slows your breath naturally, which increases those CO2 levels and allows your breathing to come in its natural form, which is the first lesson in the Tiger transformation. It starts with the overview, then it goes Tiger breathing, Tiger stretching, Tiger recode, Tiger rerun, creating a base, gaining leverage, and changing levels, pressing, pulling, throwing, swinging, and striking, 3-dimensional movement, transformational fitness, total performance, progression, and lifestyle. And that is my course. And it's basically teaching everybody all of it. So by the end of these 12 weeks, not only will they be in a program already that's literally got them sprinting and got them doing a full fitness program, but they understand it and they've learned it, because elevation of consciousness is where it all starts. And that's why the Thunderdome's original quote is, to elevate consciousness and raise vibration, because we can't do this without waking people up. Nobody cares about the fertilizer that's destroying our seas right now. We can't even swim in it, and everybody's coughing. They got from the air. I'm not sure what exactly the chemical effects were that, but everybody's got a runny nose. It's like they're sick from this fertilizer disaster that's fueled the algae bloom and killed all the life. You know what I'm saying? These are the things that we need to care about. We need to care more about the way our food's produced. We need to care about restoring nature and aligning with nature.
I love your progress, and it makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of parallels to yoga, right? And most Westerners, when they jump into yoga, they jump right into asanas, right? So you start in, you jump into poses. But if you what's that?
It's a strength class.
Right. You jump right into that, and as opposed to in your philosophy, and similar to traditional yoga, you're going to start out with most likely prana yoga, right? You should start with your breath, then
calming the mind.
Yes, and then eventually you get to jnana yoga, which does make sense that your lifestyle is at the end, because that's a lot of the knowledge part, and that seems to tie in everything that you've just learned, and which is going to probably make it easier for you to really adapt a different diet, and how your lifestyle is going to be changed based on your breathing, based on your stretching, based on your exercises, and all that stuff.
It's all connected.
Works really well. Yeah,
it's a domino effect. You start doing one thing poorly, the next thing is going to, start to be affected, and then you're going to get more stagnant. You're going to get away from nature itself. So I think people are so disconnected from it. I think a lot of the knowledge behind it has been suppressed, and the true understanding of health has been suppressed for so long. But in this awakening era, which we can get into, people are learning. We got the access to information. People are learning about, what is our natural form of health and how do we restore that? And it's nature. It's like same with our bodies, where everyone's trying to do so much. They're moving so fast. We're creating so much, and it's a rat race to nowhere, when we need to honor what's here, respect this experience, and have the character to do that. It's like, we're going nowhere. Where's everybody going? Mars? They're in a rat race. They're just producing so much, and that's because of a manipulation. You know what I'm saying?
I'm sure you're familiar with James Nestor's book Breath.
Yeah.
And I really do enjoy that, because it's very simple, right? You start out with some pretty simple exercises, and you already see the results of those, right? And it's a great first step. Yeah,
it absolutely is. It's a great book. It's one of the books I recommend to any client, anyone that's interested in learning about breath, and absolutely a massive impact it has on your overall well-being, and how our domestication has hurt that, and how we can restore that. So you can see with this form of fitness and this form of physiological development, it's not optimal done in a strip mall gym. Like, that's not true health. I mean, it's a supplement the way everything else is a supplement, but we can't do it as good as nature's created it and designed it. And the experience of nature, like all things in nature have a design through evolution, the way it's all unfolded. Our DNA is programmed to adapt and survive in certain ways, and we have not reached a level where those are familiar with chemical inputs and synthetic inputs and overstimulation of computers and everything like that. So we're the generations here that are getting whacked with a whole new sensory experience that our DNA is not coded for.
I'm looking at the poster right in behind you, and it looks like the Fibonacci series.
Yeah, so
Fibonacci pattern, right?
I'm surprised I didn't say that when I started talking about
design.
But when we talk about design, which is the philosophy behind this fitness, talks about the beginning. We're designed to do things in a certain way, and then it talks about conventional fitness in that design. But when you look at all things in nature, when you look at our adolescents when we're born, when you look at really healthy athletes and the most explosive athletes, the guys that don't even need to warm up, the guys that can go play, Michael Jordan play 18 holes of golf and then go play a basketball game and not even consider being fatigued. You look at 80-year-old marathon runners, there's none of them that don't move with the Fibonacci sequence. So that's what the pattern is. It's the shifting of energy from column to column and forward locomotion. That is how we go forward, is the Fibonacci sequence. And we can't do that if we don't set our feet the right way. And nobody's feet can set the right way because they've been inactive. So we're now, even shoes in the past century and a half, our bodies have not caught up and adapted to shoes, right? So you fast forward this and you say, okay, your bodies are designed to do certain things. They're designed to produce power in certain ways. They're designed to produce force in certain ways, right? The deep squat is my best example of this. Conventional fitness does a deep squat. Put a bar in the back, squat your butt to the ground, weight on your heels, and then drive out of that position. Now, it's like you think about if you were in a battle, if you were surviving, how is our body designed to produce force? Would you get in a deep squat? Would you get in a resting squat? That's a resting position, and we're overloading it and trying to forcefully, ignorantly make it a position where we produce a lot of force from. It's a resting position. It's like being on your side like this. It's not optimal for force production, right? Look at the bench press. The Fibonacci sequence requires rotary action in the joints, just like a punch. When we produce forces, when we throw, there's a spiral, there's a rotary action in our force production. You don't want to be in here strong and then out here strong. It's nonlinear. Nature's nonlinear. The way we apply force is nonlinear, right? Think of a hamstring curl. When you do a hamstring curl, what would you ever do a hamstring curl? Ever in nature? What we are designed to do certain things. It's like a dog trying to kill shit with his paws, not using his mouth. It doesn't. There's a design. There's something here. There's a way that our body's supposed to move, work, and produce forces. And when we don't honor that and capitalize on it, and we try to ignorantly decide for ourselves how it's going to be, bad things happen. You see that through food. You see that through the environment. You see that through how we treat our landscapes. You see that through fitness. You see it through medicine. All of it. You're muted.
I'm sorry, I'm unmuting. There's another piece that, although there's many of these pieces, but you touched on vibration. And that's part of this whole thing, is elevating the vibration through these, starting with breathing. You know, if you really do wonderful breath exercises, you're energized when you're done. You've raised your vibration. Same with dance, you know, same with music. It's
movement.
Right. It's stimulating electrons and protons. And that was the other piece that we have to take into consideration is protons are power as well. Not photons, protons. Big difference. But, you know, these are kind of the pieces of the puzzle that I really think that are important to be mentioned so that people get that this is all encompassing. Like, you are really changing, you know, your ability, your being, your spirit, your soul.
Yes, mind, body, spirit. So she said it right there. If you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. That's Tesla. But Tesla also has my favorite quote up here. The day science begins to study the non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. And I love that quote because that's happening. That's now. That's the awakening. That's this time frame where the knowledge that the deeper understandings and the knowledge that will make for a more optimal lifestyle in humanity right now are no longer going to be able to be suppressed. And we're going to learn and become more knowledgeable faster than we ever have. And in that, we're going to start to understand why things like earthing, things like meditation, things like, you know, sound healing are all so beneficial to us. And then we're going to be able to capitalize on that. And it's true medicine, because a lot of conventional medicine, as we know, masks issues. The issues kind of still lie deep within us, but they seem like they're fixed because of the conventional chemicals, the altering of our brain chemistry, whatever it may be. But it doesn't mean the issue's fixed. And so I think we're just going to get deeper understandings of how to work the non-physical phenomena and integrate that into our overall being and becoming light beings. Like, I don't think we know even close to the potential of a human being and you know, what we are, what our true form is.
Oh, damn, that's for sure, Perky. That is for sure. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with that comment. So let's kind of reel it back in and let's talk a little bit more about soil, Perky, and how that truly is the foundation of everything that you're working toward. Is the grounding, is the, you know, the connection to getting your hands dirty, working with the soil, having it produce beneficial fruits and vegetables, having it beneficially clean the toxins that are present, filter water. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So
yeah. All the benefits with healthy living soils, all the compromise and issues with conventional methods, depletion of soils, compaction, water runoff, water usage, water retention, all of it around the board. And I look at it like this, and obviously this is so much more your jurisdiction. I get the broad part of it. You get down in the weeds, and listening to Leighton talk about soil has been incredible. And I've been there for some deep conversations. I was just trying to keep up, but it is wild. But I look at it like this. Everybody talks about, okay, what if the wolf population goes down, bad things are going to happen. If we lose the bees, bad things are going to happen to our food chains, to the cycle of life that we need to survive, that we utilize to survive, right? But nobody can see that at the microbial level. So if we start killing off with insecticides, pesticides, herbicides, key pieces of that microbial life cycle, it's going to screw everything up. This is the foundations where it all starts, down to bacteria and fungi. Now, if we're killing off all these second, third, fourth level predators in the microbial soil system, that whole thing's screwed up just the way it would be if you see it with wolves and bees, except it's screwed up from the foundation and the base and what that provides for the things upstream that we end up eating. But nobody can see that. Nobody can feel that. So they don't care. Even though the science is there to show this is where it starts, right? So everybody talk about health coaches. I mean, if we don't fix this issue, we're going to be just chasing quick fixes and selling quick fixes upstream. We need to fix the foundation of this. It should not be allowed to produce foods the way that we have. It should not be allowed to give someone food that has been treated with insecticides, herbicides, pesticides. It's synthetically grown.
Love it.
So the regenerative soil reset is, my understanding of soil comes back to a lot of Leighton's models and Leighton's lessons and, the replication of nature. You look at the woods, and the woods has fantastic living soil. So there's all these trees and these massive growths and this beautiful soil. It's really untouched, right? So we want to replicate that in urban areas, in areas that have been civilized. And we don't want to be walking around on synthetic and contaminated lands within those urban areas. So how do we replicate the soil from the woods here? And that's what Leighton's process really does. We build what's called an eco-pile, which is, over the years, Leighton's experience he's learned how to basically build a fast decomposing compost pile that's the perfect habitat for microbiology to live and replicate itself. It has all the right foods, the right temperature, the amount of water. And so it decomposes into this really healthy pile. And I remember first seeing his first eco pile, earthworms like this. I'm like, man, I don't even know soil yet, but this soil looks freaking good, right? Just nutrient dense, a lot of activity. And so a lot of second, third level predators, nematodes, diatoms, amoebas, a lot more action than you would see in just regular soils, compacted soils from a lawn, even if you didn't fertilize it yet. Civilized, disrupted soil networks. We rip out the networks, the biology's whole life and system and surrounding and habitat has been destroyed, struggles to survive, right? So his method, we build this pile that essentially replicates the woods. Now, when we have all these lawns and we have all these farms, fertilized land that we have knocked down and destroyed and disrupted soil networks, right? So the biology in that soil is suboptimal. It's not where it should be. We have intervened and destroyed a lot of it. And then you add synthetics and chemicals into that provide things that the biology would provide otherwise and dies off and depletes that soil. So when we clear these areas, what's feeding the soils? We're not allowing the decomposition of the natural processes of trees and animals pooping and bugs and all these things coming in to build what we would see as a forest. We're not allowing that. We've cleared it. We've destroyed the soils. Nothing's feeding those soils. So they come in with synthetic inputs, synthetic nitrogen, fertilizers, and then obviously pesticides and herbicides, because that creates a whole nother amount of issues that kills off things that would be doing their job otherwise. And so this process, you can clear your woods. This process, we take that eco pile, we mix it and brew it, which is Leighton does it with a massive brewer for massive operations, but people can do this in their backyard. It's going to be the process at every Thunderdome, no matter what scale, shape, and size it is. We build eco piles surrounding the dome. Then we take the pile, and I'm just going to explain it at the small scale, not the way it would be in Leighton's shop, because that gets a little intricate. But essentially, we take two gallons of that compost. We mix in what we call fish brew, which is Leighton's secret sauce. And that's one of the main things about Leighton's process that makes it just so bulletproof and so successful, and the results so incredible, is that he's found that, you know, the aquatic ties of our path from the first single-celled organism. Aquatics is in our DNA. We're all connected to it, and it's very healthy for pretty much all life. And that fish and fish poop, just the way many ancient civilizations have used it in their food development, is a very, very powerful and impactful source of biologicals and nutrients. And so we add fish brew, which is the process. We can talk about fish brew in a little bit. It's a fantastic additive here, which is essentially fish poop. And we add that and we mix it and add water to it until that water becomes like a mud or a chocolate milk, which is essentially the biology in it, taking the biology off of the solids and the organic matter and breaking that up to a fine liquid. And so that liquid is biologically charged and active with life and loaded with second, third, fourth level predators that are going to get the nutrient cycling in that soil, just cranking, right? So then we put that into a paint screener in this process in the video, and we screen it out. So there's no solids and it's just a liquid. We dilute that because it's a concentrate and it looks like a little bit of mud. But if you look at it under the microscope, or if you just do a turf trial like I did, and you can see if you look at the course, there's so much more biology. I did a turf trial and my grass grew here with the treated product and the grass grew here without it. So you're like spraying this bit of mud and it feels like, am I doing anything? But then you look at the soil, you look at it under the microscope, you look at the results, and it's 10x what fertilizers could ever do, because it's the natural organic way. And we're seeing that through, I mean, even just the results with cannabis growth, all the development of these plants. They come out so much better with that natural form. And what is it? Replicating the process of nature, taking the woods, taking the biology that's there and implementing it into a new home.
And the craziest part is the dilution ratio is insane. Like that one eco pile would do 50, 100 acres.
Yeah.
Think about that. One little eco pile took me 2 hours to build, and Perky a couple hours to collect all the ingredients.
Yep.
100 acres, right? So this isn't complicated. It's not expensive. The reason we did that course was so everybody could do it at home. And you know, whether you're growing your own vegetables or if you just want to take care of your landscape. I mean, it drives me crazy, the people that I see spending all this money at Whole Foods for this organic produce because they only want to eat organic, and then they go home and ChemLawn's fucking spraying their goddamn grass. Hello, where's
the organic thing is huge. It's just a huge buzz, and the sad thing about that is we don't even know. We can't trust what's organic. Look at the FDA. Look at the Department of Agriculture. Look at all these things that almost allow for shady terminology just to get it by, so they can make some more money. Whether it's talking about eggs and free range chickens and organics there or organic vegetables, we don't know, and we do know that they're deceptive. We do know that it's untruthful. So not only does producing that food locally and utilizing this process to do it ensure organics and healthy living soils, which would essentially be superfoods for us, but we can cook that for people. People, they get lazy. They just go buy the food up the street, especially in this domesticated state. We at the Thunderdome want to have a cafe attached to it that literally cooks us food for cost-effective meals. We grow it, we cook it, we take local food production to the next level with passion, fueled at the ground level by healthy living soils. And that model is just the complete opposite of what's being abused in this current state.
And you want to hear something really crazy, Perky? I think I've told you about Kyle Moot's study. Kyle's going to be on the show coming up. He's a corn farmer. I've worked with him for about 1.5 years before this spring. And he called me this spring freaking out because of the Ukrainian war. Nitrogen had gone up 30-40%. He was not feeling comfortable risking all of that money up front and praying to God that this plant actually grew. And that at the end of it, he could sell that corn for a profit. And so he called me panicked and was like, I got to do something. I can't afford the nitrogen. I got to go. I got to listen to you and Michael. I got to trust you guys. I'm working with you guys for a few years now. Let's do it. And I'm like, all right, when are you planting? Oh, I'm planting in 2 weeks. I'm like, Kyle, there's no fucking way I can make enough to cover 200 acres in 2 weeks here in California. If I was in Connecticut, yeah, I could whip that up in a heartbeat. So let's do this, Kyle. Instead of doing the complete product, which is worm castings, biocomplete compost, and fish brew combined, let's just use fish. So he applied 5 acres of fish brew to 5 gallons an acre to 200 acres of corn. We had an increase in 2 critical minerals for the digestive system. We had a reduction of 16% moisture. So that means the cow needs to only eat 85% of the food that they normally would have eaten, as well as we increased fat, we increased energy, we increased lipids, we increased protein across the fucking boards on a level that horrified one of the leading feed guys in the area. And Kyle's working with him now to, bring this to the attention of feed producers. See, feed producers are growing things that we use to feed the animals that we eat. So the more healthy those animals are, whether they're chickens, pigs, cows, whatever, the more healthy we will be in the consumption of them. And it's so fucking simple. He saved $100,000 or something insane that year, and he increased his productivity. He increased his nutrient levels. And again, we're going to have him on the show, Av. So we're going to really get into that.
Did he grow like GM corn and soil?
Or not GMO corn. And he just grew corn last year. This year, we're going to be doing corn and beans on 500 acres. And we're throwing the kitchen sink at it because we have time. So he's going to get the complete product. And the interesting thing is, too, that this particular product that we used has salt tolerant and salt loving biology. As a matter of fact, all of his products do, but this one tends to be a little bit more concentrated. And we showed a reduction in sodium in the soil. We showed that we had a test done prior to application, a biological test done after application, a biological test after 2 weeks of application, which is kind of an industry standard to determine if you were successful in colonization and at what level you colonized. And then we did a biological test after harvest. Guess what, guys? The boys are still there doing their job. So next spring, he's already going to be the game.
So he's just got to feed them. They're already there. The biology, the woods has been established in his cornfields.
Exactly, Perky. It's exactly. And the other piece, when we talk about agitation, when we're taking the paint mixer and we're mixing the biologically complete soil from the eco or compost from the eco pile, we are activating electrons. We're stimulating protons. And what that means is that we have now magnetized that little piece of organic matter. And what that means is when that piece of organic matter comes in contact with a silt or a clay platelet, boom, instant aggregation. Aggregation is the key to soil health. It allows for gas exchange, which means oxygen down to feed the roots and the bacteria, which is super important, and gas exchange out, which means the CO2 is removed, keeping the soil aerobic. So it's all just part of this, plan of nature. That's how we got here, man. And so this is how simple it is for anybody to do this.
And that story with Kyle should be exciting to everyone. People are going to pay for organic foods, but then not care about that. Not excited about that. So that's the bridge. So the Thunderdome is the bridge for them. We're going to do what you're excited about. We're going to bring you in, like you said, when they're dancing and they're laughing and they're doing all this fun, part of this community. And then we're like, well, you got, why don't you start with some of this stuff and help, and we'll do some stuff at your house. That's what it is. So the bridge, that is such an incredible story. Like the fact that he flipped everything, he saved a ton of money. Then you look at the processes of conventional farming, you look at composting, and then you look at Leighton's process, and it's like, oh, the compost, it stinks. It's a pain in the ass. You got to flip it. You got to really monitor. Leighton's EcoPile, just check the temp, make sure it's okay, and just let it sit for 6 months. And then you're going to have, if you have a yard of this, Leighton, you could treat an incredible amount, entire farm.
No problem.
I think we've made, and I'm sure Ken's going to jump on to give the prelude to next week's show soon. But I do find it so much easier. I've done 30 years of working with organic farmers. I do find it so much easier to talk about cannabis than it is to talk about corn, right? Because we see the results in that final product. We know that if we do this to the soil, it translates into that better high, right? You can't seem to convince them that you're getting better milk, or you're getting, a tastier tomato. They don't, or a tomato with more lycopene, more, it doesn't mean the same. So it's. You find, once again, cannabis is a nice gateway drug to get farmers to understand more about the importance of the rhizosphere.
Man,
Absolutely.
you worded that perfect. And I'll let Leighton go off on this because he's got more experience with this than anyone I've ever met.
Well, the funny thing was the first Regen conference we put on in Portland. I came out publicly and said just that. I said cannabis is going to be the leading example. It's the most studied plant on the planet at this point in time, but it's going to make everybody think, well, wait a minute. These guys can grow this incredible flower that's a nutrient pig like a tomato plant without any synthetics, and they save a ton of money. Why aren't we doing this in agriculture? And it's happening. Kyle's an example. It's fucking happening. But I think the real point is cannabis people love their plants. I've never met a landscaper that loves their plants. They're here to feed them and cut it, feed it and cut it, because that means money to them. There's a disconnect between loving the plant and using the plant to earn money. And that's, most farmers are using their plants to make money. They don't go out there in the garden and be like, oh, what's going on, buddy, today? So, that's where the spirituality, the disconnect, the grounding are all going to be really important in future farmers. And again, Perky fucking hit the nail on the head. Set one of these Thunderdomes up on a farm. Get people connected. Explain to people that, hey, what you're eating here has never been exposed to any synthetics. It's going to start to heal your gut biome. And if you don't have a good gut biome, you're probably depressed, aren't you? Guess what?
Then you take medicine.
Is the second brain, dude.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I got a comment on that because you guys both worded that so nicely and just hit the nail on the head with that. Because one, everything that our current and future circumstances, as I said in the last podcast, our current and future circumstances are a reflection of our depth of consciousness and character. And that is what that is. Your relationship with that plant, your consciousness and your character. What are you trying to get out of it? And it shows up. It shows up. Is it love? Is it fear? Is it hatred? Is it you trying to deceive someone? Are you trying to get money out of it? Are you trying to use this system? Or are you trying to create a world of love? And two is passion. You guys talking about how cannabis is the gateway is the exact conversation, except you worded it way better than I did, that we had on Monday's podcast, the OG's Power Hour. Okay. And John was at a retreat where these guys are making unbelievable cannabis, and they're turning that into oils that are extremely healing. And they have people come and they teach people how to do the process. It was a really cool retreat. Ken, if you don't mind, see if you can post some information on the chat about their retreat, because I was amazed. But what I saw in it was, Ken, you got to be freaking out right now watching Monday's podcast and then what they're talking about here, because they nailed it. It's passion, right? And so
Yeah.
with cannabis, you see the desire for passion, the desire for better in competition. It's so passionate, it's competitive. The cup, the emerald cup, doing all these things. How well can we make these plants? How well can we make this soil, this biology? And then when you smoke it or ingest it, whatever you do with the chemical ones, there's an edge. There's like a little, it's not doing the exact, it's not activating that deep relaxation, that parasympathetic. And I know this from deep experience. And then you got the unbelievable, euphoric, nourishing feeling that the plant can provide for you from the organic plants that these guys were talking about. They're like, it's the, you don't even want to pass the joint, or you don't, they just, they couldn't wait for their, you know, the healing effect, that relaxation, that nourishing of the body. Now, we talked about that in that conversation. I said, people need to feel this way about food, but it's just not as exciting. And they're numb to it. So like they'll just pay for the organics and this and that, but they don't have this passion behind it. What if we had a program, eco-friendly fundraising, whatever it may be, where all of these people competed with who can create the healthiest soil, who can produce the most food, and who can produce the best food? And that was starting to be part of the integration of our education systems. That it should be such a focus that it's an uncompromised, easy aspect of our nature. It should be a part of the economy. It should be integrated into the economy, and it should be just such a, we have that, and we have so much focus on that we have it down packed, and people are so into it and passionate about it that they're creating superfoods and healing foods. As they're doing that with cannabis, why aren't we doing that with food? How much of the population smokes cannabis or interacts with cannabis? How many people eat? It's like, where is the level of consciousness and character behind what we're eating? And people's focus is consumed by nonsense nothingness, bread and circus. If you put the energy you do into sports, into anything like that, the slightest bit into local farming and food production, we could reverse a lot of the health crises and disease, disruption, disorder within the mind, body, and spirit that we're experiencing in the most advanced and resourceful society in the history of the world. But it's about a reflection of our awareness about it and what we do about it. Some people know about it, they don't do shit. They just buy the organic food and hope that that's it. What are they doing? And so people have thought I'm out there and crazy for pursuing this whole vision. And I'm sitting there going, this is basic knowledge. What the hell? I'm not going to feed the broken system, support the patterns that aren't serving us. What else? This needs to happen.
Well, I love you, Perky. All right, Ken, you want to bump on? We're at 1 minute, 1 hour, 3.
Yeah, I'm just going to go through the list of upcoming shows. We've got Mrs. Cannoli on Monday. We're looking for your buddy there. Oh my God, Kyle. We're trying to reach out to Dr. Elaine Ingham. Alex actually got back to me. He's the gentleman that has the watering system.
Crop steering through watering.
Yeah. Tom Landry, Dennis from Maine is going to be coming on. I think Perky, you're going to definitely want to hook up with Dennis because you guys are on the same wavelength for all of this. We're also going to have the Muncher crew, but I want to run Monday's show banner and give you guys a 30-second break. Now, remember, guys, we are switching the day to Mondays, same time, but instead of Fridays. With all the events that we have coming up, we decided to, instead of having it on Friday, which would interfere, we're going to have the show on Mondays. But as I said, I just gave you a list of amazing people that we're reaching out to start coming on. So don't miss Mrs. Cannoli on Monday. And I'll have that OG's Power Up Hour up. I'll throw the link into the chat for everybody that wants to check it out.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Keep up the good work, man. These
Right?
conversations are great. Yeah, I'm tuning in, watching all these podcasts, just circulating the information. We talk about spreading awareness. Depth of consciousness is the source of creating the changes that we need. Well, this is how it's done.
Right? And we're so blessed to be able to do this at this point in time, especially post-apocalyptic fucking pandemic, whatever you want to call it. You know, that in many ways elevated conscious on a way that I don't think that anybody could have expected. You know, it really forced people to think like, what am I doing? You know, why am I doing this? Is this really making me happy, or is it driving me nuts?
It exploited the weakness in our immunity.
Yeah.
It exploited the weakness in our immune system and said, wait, there was a 72% deficiency. Most 72% of people that struggled with COVID were deficient in vitamin D. They didn't even get outside.
Oh,
oops.
Wonder why.
Right? And it's like,
but let's not go down that rabbit hole. Fuck
yeah,
that.
we don't have to go to the awakening.
We'll stay positive there. Stay positive.
Yeah, we tend to go down the rabbit hole of, you know, this time
frustration
that we're going through, and the self-realization of society and why things are the way they are. But
if you don't mind, Jim, I'd love to chat a little bit more, get your thoughts more about probiotics, right? Because you know, we're using the fish brew for the soil, but what do we do for ourselves? And then I'd love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts about cannabis as medicine. Like how do you introduce cannabis in your holistic vision in the Thunderdome? Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, probiotics are good.
It's psychedelics as well. I noticed you got a fly agaric on your shirt there. Just wondering if psychedelics get in there for you too.
Yes, they do. And we just saw Australia this week as the first place to acknowledge psychedelics as real medicine, conventional medicine. And that's huge. But to start on probiotics, I think they're great. I think that supplements and a lot of things that we're taking nutritionally are necessary because of our circumstances, but they're probably not optimal. And I talked about something that I believe, but the potential for life force energy and real nutrients and manufactured nutrients. I know a lot of supplements are organic and you know, derived from natural resources, but are they conducting the life force energy that's coming from the sun and going through all of us? We don't know. And these are the things that we might find out in this non-physical phenomenon era, right? So probiotics are good and they're necessary. So taking them, overdoing anything isn't going to help, but taking them, especially if you're not getting a diet with a lot of real organic quality food, it's all about quality, is necessary. And the big thing about probiotics is the counter to antibiotics. Whether you're taking them or not, many people are ingesting, not on purpose, antibiotics through the water runoffs, through the fertilizer plants, through the farming that's happening, through the foods that they're eating. These pigs, everything's being pumped with antibiotics, and that's disrupting the microbiome. So we need more of that good bacteria in the microbiome. It's killing our bacteria. It's killing what we use to break down foods. And so we add probiotics to counter the ingested antibiotics that we aren't intentionally taking. So I think it's good for anyone. The cleaner you are, the less you need them. So anyone, you know, whether you're breathing in air in a very congested area, whether you're eating foods that might not be purely organic and might have been pumped up with antibiotics and steroids, or whether you're near water sources and you're drinking some form of tap water that are near farms and they're pumping antibiotics. It's just that's ecosystem cycle. Where do they get integrated into the ecosystem and how are they affecting us? That's when you really need the probiotics. If we were not contaminating our ecosystem entirely, if we were producing food in a much better, more holistic form, they would be much less necessary, and so would the rest of supplementing. And then that's my true perspective on it is it'll never be as good as it could be if we would just embrace the natural elements and stop causing the problems. We would be less efficient. So what was the second part of that question again?
The second question was about cannabis and psychedelics and how you incorporate that into people's health. But I was also wondering a little bit more around, you know, you're producing all this great produce. Do you incorporate fermentation? Because I know tremendous, you know, folks who are making kimchi, curtido, kraut, doing incredible stuff.
I think fermentation. Yes, absolutely. I don't, but I know that it's something that is in plans for Thunderdome. It's a skill set, right? It's a skill set I don't have. I'm not really that great of a chef or doing anything with food, but I know fermenting foods, one, preserves them naturally, and it makes them last a long time, which can be very, very beneficial. We need to master that. It makes them taste great. And then it increases the level of probiotics. It's very healthy for the gut. It's good for the microbiome, right? So I love fermenting, and I think that when there's Thunderdomes up, they're all going to have different specializations and different products. And I would love one of them to be specialized in fermentation, and then the other one specialized in raw organic milk and dairy, and the other one specialized in this. And they're a part of 7 of them in a local area that work off of each other to keep that food pretty local, right? These ones do chickens, and these ones do this, and these ones do that. And they have their focal points, although they're diverse in their biologicals. But when it comes to cannabis and psychedelics and the integration of that into what I do, I think, Leighton would be able to tackle the subject tenfold what I can. But as far as the application of it, I don't prescribe anything to anyone, but I know that our DNA and our ancestry has a very deep connection to the cannabis plant, to the cannabinoid, right? And so there's a resonation there that regulates our autonomic nervous system and our chemical balances in our body, even our hormone levels, right? It can lower cortisol. There's some drastic effects that hemp, the cannabis plant, hemp through THC, have on our inner being. And you can feel that when you smoke. And it obviously, if it's chemically, synthetically enhanced, it might be slightly compromised, but you can feel that nourishment when you take the cannabis plant. Your body knows that. Your ancestry, your DNA is coded to this relationship.
Perky,
and so
we evolved.
It regulates your body.
So Perky, we evolved with cannabis. And let's get away from hemp and cannabis. They're the same damn thing. All right. We're just going to call it the cannabis. Low T, high T, doesn't matter. High CBD, high THC. It's the same thing. We just bred the original cannabis plant to have more of the psychedelic compounds in it for our pleasure, for our enjoyment. But we have 2 systems, 2 endocannabinoid systems that regulate the entire body, not just one part. The entire body is controlled and regulated by these 2 common receptors, CB1 and CB2, I believe, if I'm correct. So for us to take cannabis out of our diet, out of our animals' diets, that's what really snowballed the health crisis that we live in today. 2 things did. FDR realizing that after purchasing, I believe it was a German pharmaceutical company, realized that he could get super wealthy by getting involved in medical schools. And eventually he pretty much took over every medical school in America. And then because he had the pharmaceutical company, he had the guinea pigs to prescribe it to the masses to see what the reactions were. It was a giant experiment on us. So between the combination of DuPont getting the US government to banish hemp and to the point where farmers were told if there was any rogue or stray or wild hemp on their property, wild cannabis, that farm would be seized. So what do you think every farmer did? He went out and burned every land race cannabis plant he could find. So all of a sudden, all the animals no longer had a main dietary of cannabis. And that's what the combination of those 2 things created the perfect health disaster that we are in present day. And then add in commercial farming or industrial farming where we had no nutrition left. So there's this gentleman that we're going to get on the show at some point in the near future. His name is Dan Kittredge, and I highly suggest you guys look him up. He created a meter, I think it must have been 10 years ago, where you as an individual could purchase this meter, you go into the grocery store, and you could actually shoot whatever produce you were looking at. It's not a bricks meter. It's not a bricks meter. This is a nutrition meter. It shows you the nutritional value of whatever you're shooting it with. What a fucking tool. Why do you think it's taken him so long to get this into production? And Dr. Lane bought, I believe, one of the first ones that came off the production line last year. And it was like $300 to $400, which is kind of pricey. And the goal was to get these to a point where literally anybody could afford to buy one. And I'm sure Dan is going to push, the manufacturing. So, obviously the scale of economy, the more he can make, the cheaper they get to make, and therefore the price comes down, et cetera, et cetera. So that again is, going back to living soils and having the soil do the work for us to produce those high levels of nutrients and vitamins that we are missing. And then stimulate our endocannabinoid system. And hey, if you don't want to get fucking high, don't get high. You can always take a tincture before bed, and I guarantee you'll have the best night's sleep you've ever had in your life. And or CBDs or CBGs. There's a lot of other less psychoactive.
I felt it.
Yeah, compounds. Cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. So you have cannabinoids and cannabinols, and the cannabinols generally do not have a psychedelic effect, where the cannabinoids do, and some of the cannabinoids don't. Some of the cannabinols do as well. So, there is a little bit of a learning curve on this, but no, I think cannabis is critical in maintaining what I want to call physical health, and I think mushrooms are critical in maintaining mental health. And I think the two of those are sound on and are so important in our overall health. If psychologically, emotionally, we're present and aware, then we can enjoy nature more. We can connect with nature more. We're not depressed and frustrated and upset. Our mind has been set free from the shackles that Perky talks about. So I think both of them have a really, really important space in humanity's future, for sure. And I'll let you go on about it from now, Perks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, that's spot on. There's your background that I was trying to explain it within our ancestry, our evolution, the way we evolved with the cannabis plant. And who knows where it's at with mushrooms? That could be the part of the reason we turned from apes to humans. Like, that could have a massive role in the evolution of our consciousness, and it can continue. We can become more conscious and more beings of light through mushrooms. Now, I know personally, there's so many components to mushrooms that help, and scientifically, that's been proven in recent years that even one mushroom trip for months can have an unbelievable psychological effect on someone who is depressed or anxious, whatever their issue, PTSD. Mushrooms are, to me, the single healthiest thing that a human can ingest, and I would love to prescribe them because I'm familiar with them. I know mushrooms, and I'm very disciplined with them. I don't just take a shit ton of mushrooms and go, bonkers. There's bad trips happen because of the intentions and what they're revealing inside the human being. A lot of people can't engage with mushrooms because they don't have those thought processes, and they never have, and it opens up to them to a lot that they don't want to feel or see or talk about or acknowledge, and so they have bad trips. But it's never really the mushroom itself, it's what it's revealing. And the bad trips sometimes, most of the time, I don't know if you have had people that bad trips help people the most. They have a bad trip, they come out and they're like, oh, this and that, and they have that epiphany stage, and they have that laughter stage, and it really changes their overall being. Now, there's nothing in medicine conventionally made that can do that. LSD would be similar and close. I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's as beneficial. I can't dive too much into the science of that myself, but I can dive into the experiences of it. And I think that mushrooms and the act of taking in a ceremony or microdosing can be the single most psychological beneficial thing for anyone, for this society. And I think it's going to play a crucial role in waking people up to pretty much everything we're talking about here today, to what matters in the world, to the lifestyle that we should be living instead of being consumed.
And let's not forget that in many ways, the mushroom can be extremely healing. So we all experience trauma in life, right? We've all had trauma. We've had loss of life, bad experiences, been taken advantage of, whatever you want to call it. Personally speaking, I lost my partner about a year and a couple months ago now. And during the process of her passing, she went from an incredibly beautiful, vibrant woman that looked like she was in her 30s to something you'd see in Auschwitz. And I watched it. I literally watched the deterioration over the course of 9 months. I blocked it. All right, I just blocked it out. And when she passed, I blocked that too. I didn't look at it. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I went into a dark place. I went into a hole. I didn't want to socialize. I wasn't interested in anything. And it got so bad that I was in the supermarket. I hadn't eaten in 2 days because I had no hunger. I just no interest in fucking food. I was like, I got to eat something, man. I'm starting to get, sugar crash here. So I went to the grocery store, walking around aimlessly because nothing was like interesting to me. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to a supermarket and nothing there is like turned you on. Right? That was a bizarre experience. Normally you're like, oh, this smells good. Or, oh, I feel like I might want to eat that or drink this. Nothing. Right. So I run into these two young couples in their 20s laughing and playing, and they got fucking mad. And I stormed out of the grocery store. I came home, I sat in my chair, and I was like, oh my God. I got mad because somebody was happy. What the fuck is wrong with me? Called my buddy Corey. I said, Corey, I need fucking help right now. I need a guide. I need you to come down, and I have some golden teachers. I need to hero dose. I mean, I need to go fucking hard. And he's like, no problem. I'll jump on a plane tomorrow. I got these really cool chocolates that a pharmaceutical kind of guy, a mushroom nut makes me. They're super clean. They don't give you stomach quidgies. And he goes, I know the dosage of it, whereas the golden teachers can vary depending on the strain as well as the amount consumed. So I'll be down in 2 days. So he dosed the fuck out of me, like to the point where I was like this in the chair. All I could do was hold on to the arms of the chair. He kept looking over, making sure I was okay. You need some water, Leighton? You need anything? You want to talk? And I'm just, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. So I powered my way through this 4.5 hour hardcore hero dose. Next day I woke up. It felt like a fucking lead backpack had been taken off my back. I didn't feel great. I didn't feel wonderful, but I was lightened, like incredibly lightened. And so he ended up going home. He left me a half a bar just in case I wanted to do some more therapy. I waited a couple of days and I started doing a little bit more therapy, not hero dosing, but dosing, not microdosing, dosing. And I would say probably 5 more doses every night. Now we're about a week and a couple of days later from the hero dose. And I was feeling okay again. Like I could look people in the eyes. It didn't bother me when someone was happy. And that was the beginning of my therapy. And to be honest with you, like recently I haven't been doing it, but for better part of a year now, or not a year, about 6-7 months, I've been on and off depending on how I feel. And if I find zero joy in life, then I dose. And that helps to reconnect me back to people, the planet, and my surroundings. So that's how powerful this shit is. But don't do it on your own. Make sure you have a guide, someone who knows what they're doing, not somebody that just goes, oh, I love mushrooms. No, you want someone that really understands how to respect the plant. Because if you do not respect that plant, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're not going to have any experience, because I know people that have taken mushrooms and had zero experience because they didn't believe it. They didn't trust that this was a medicine, or a bad experience where now you're afraid to take them. And that's worse because this is something that could help you tremendously. And you had a bad experience. It's like, your mother force feeds you tomatoes and for the rest of your life, you can't eat tomatoes. Right. So that's why I'm saying if you're not experienced in this stuff, be very careful, know your source, know your guide, make sure that they're trustworthy and they have good experience and good intentions. But I highly recommend that you do take advantage of the incredible medicinal power of that fungi that was here for us in so many ways. Uh-oh, we lost Perky. Oh, you're back.
Anyway. I'm back. I got 99% of that. I just had a little bit at the end. I lost you a little bit, but what a beautiful story, right? Is what I, is my response. And I can't think of anything, not to constantly harp and hate on conventional medicine because there's so many good intentions with people conventional medicine, especially ground level. The lower you go to the ground, the better people's intentions are. And then you get to the core of it and the source of it, and you get some deception, you get false science, you get false studies, stuff like that. But I don't see anything in conventional medicine that's able to make that impact on people. And the fact that that is such a beautiful story and such a transformation, it disappoints me that there's still a percentage of this society that would demonize the use of them because they were manipulated into thinking that that was a bad thing. And you're a hippie and you're this and you're that. And I'm right because I'm structured and I stay in between the lines of the cultural perspective. They stay inside the slice of the pie when there's a whole circle of perspective that needs to be considered. And I think part of who I am and what I do in Thunderdome is breaking that chain, breaking that burden. It's not weird. It's just nature. These are deep spiritual experiences that have been used by all of our ancient ancestors. It's been used for thousands and thousands of years, documented, and it's been the source of healing. And in this society, like we talk about, the most advanced and resourceful society in the history of the world, these are missing, yet our issues are present. Depression, anxiety, mental illness, all we see this compiling. It's just like it's getting worse. And then you get the medicines with it. And I've had people as a health coach that engage with the medicines for a lot of these things. And I don't like to demonize them because it can make some second question, but I like to speak the truth. And I don't believe in a lot of the depression medicines and the because I've seen the effects of it. The anti-anxiety, I think that over time they end up creating more issues than they do help. And they should be absolutely geared towards a mushroom trip before they go to these things. And people don't have these experiences that I have. I've seen clients get on them. I know them. I'm training them. And then they get on them. I see the physical effects. I see the mental effects. I see the confusion. And it's like, for me, it's just such a clear thing. And I don't want to make anyone feel bad about taking them. But I'm also the guy that tells the truth. And I will be that guy. They can look at me like I'm the crazy prick that likes mushrooms. I don't care. This is optimal. And this is the truth that needs to be spoken. Right? It's like if you have two people, if you're in a marriage, right? And a person's extremely overweight and it's getting worse. And you're the husband and you say, hey, honey, you look beautiful. Just keep doing what you're doing just because you want them to feel happy. But they're not going to be happy because they're disappointed with themselves. Or you say, listen, hey, let's be real. You're overweight. You're gaining weight. We need to do something. Let's take action together. And I'm here to support you, but let's acknowledge this truth and face it. Which one's love? Which one's love? Which one's fear? I tend to be a being of light, try to resonate with love, and that is the truth that needs to be said. So whether it's the vax, whether it's mushrooms, whatever that people are demonized by this cultural manipulation where the masses and most people follow a narrative, and if they don't follow that narrative, they're socially discredited and demonized, bring it on. Bring it on, because the science is on our side. The science is on our side, and nobody wants to grapple about it, so let's go.
Perky, the one thing you say you don't want to demonize it. Well, I don't give a fuck either. And if I come out and I'm demonizing it, I am.
Yeah.
There's 156,000 drugs on the market created by pharmaceutical companies. There's maybe 5,000 that actually heal, and most of those are antibiotic. All of the other ones, 156,000 different drugs, are to treat symptoms. Not one of them cures anything. And then that symptom creates another symptom, which creates another symptom, and so on. And Perky, to be honest with you, when I met Pauline, as beautiful of a spirit and incredibly powerful woman she was, she had a dark side. We all do. I mean, it's important to understand it and acknowledge it. The Shadow Effect is probably the most profound book anybody could ever read. It will change the way you think about everything. She was on antidepressants and anti-anxieties, and I told her, I said, Pauline, I can see your mood do this. I go, I got to get you off those. You know, you're talking about being a being of light. Well, if you start taking these mushrooms, microdosing them, and this was, you guys, there's a backstory to this that I'm not going to get into because we're going to run out of time. But I went to her because my back was fucked up. And she was like, all right, well, who are you? What do you do? Soil biologist? What the fuck's a soil biologist? Oh, You work with soil and plants. Do you work with cannabis? Yes. Oh, I need cannabis for my medical practice. I have so many patients that are fighting cancer or have, all these other medical issues. I need cannabis in my tool belt. And I'm like, no problem. That's easy. What about mushrooms? Well, no, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with that. I'm like, all right, why don't you try this, Pauline? Why don't you try, I'm going to make you these little caplets, they're microdoses. Why don't you try these for 2 months? And let's see if we can wean you off your antidepressants and anti-anxieties. Within 2 months, they were gone. She was clean. And she would always thank me in ways that I can't even explain, because she freed herself from them. And she could look back and be like, oh my God, those things were fucking killing me. They were destroying my mental health. They were making me jittery, angry, lash out.
Numb. More than anything, numb to emotion.
Yeah. Numb. Just numb.
And I've seen physical effects. I think I'm cutting out a little bit. I've seen physical effects in clientele that started to take it, that could no longer finish sets of things that were easy for them. Dry mouth was a huge one. Just needing water and confusion, lack of clarity in their focus. You're putting chemicals in your body that are designed to mask an issue and make you think, and then they're being marketed like crazy. It's just, the whole thing needs to be acknowledged for what it is, and there's so much compromise in it. You can't even market these things in other countries. Why is it allowed here? There's like a handful of countries in the world where you can market pharmaceuticals. Now, when I say that, and I say I don't want to demonize it, it's because there's good people, there's good intentions. They all get very frustrated. Like, what do you know? What do you do? This and that. I mean, I have these experiences. I've seen these things. And I don't want to say that medicine is just terrible, but, it is deceptive. And that's the sad truth. And I've had clients get mad at me for saying that I don't agree with the fact that they're on their antidepressants and that they should be on mushrooms. But to me, that's love. Why be mad at me for saying that? I'm saying, hey, I want
if we, even going back to some of your earlier comments, I think some of your first comments, you were talking about breath again, right? And we know breath can lower your cortisol levels, lower your anxiety. So if we started, with breath and we started with diet, if as Leighton says, trauma is going to come in regardless of how you breathe and what you're eating. Trauma will still come into your life, and there might be a good reason to turn to cannabis or psychedelics, but starting with the breath is just so critical.
It's absolutely critical, and the Tiger transformation the system that I'm creating right now is fitness through fascia is the term. Fitness through fascia. So the breath is what calms the nervous system. The nervous system stores memory and state of being inside the fascia, which is the connective tissue, which shapes our skeletal and muscular systems, right? That holds everything together. It's the webbing and the bag that holds the muscles and the bones together as one. And these networks travel all throughout our body from toe to tongue. One strain can go all throughout our bodies, right? This is where the trauma is stored. So our physiology and our body is a reflection of our
shit.
mind. And
Perky,
Perky,
back it up.
Yeah, you're cutting out, Perky. You're frozen on the screen right now.
Okay, I think I got it.
There you go.
Can you hear me? Okay, so a stressed out and traumatized mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Stores inside the body, and the body's shaped like that, especially in the depths of the body, right? So how do we tune in and tap into the body to reverse the mind, and how do we tune into the mind to reverse the body? Pain, as a back pain, can be a mental, emotional thing, but reverse that. Hip pain can be causing mental issues, right? So it's the chicken or the egg, but they're a reflection of each other. And so that's where fascia stores the memory. And it's, if you can remodel and redevelop your breathing patterns, where you'll be able to let go and change and remodel your fascia, will open up energy pathways and stored trauma within your body. And what that does is it excretes. So there's lymphatic excretion, there's lymphatic buildup in the storage where these areas bind. And if you can break that tissue, it's going to excrete, and you're literally going to excrete this emotional trauma. Your body's going to do waste of it. So like you talk about breath, connect its nervous system first. We acknowledge that through breath, through temperature training, through lifestyle, through rest, right? Then it's into connective tissues and fascia, which is what tiger stretching is. It's fascia stretching, which is a form of PNF, contracted stretching, the way you see in nature. You see a cat grab the ground and then pull. Well, that is not yoga, and that is not like a linear stretch. You know what I'm saying? That is completely something different. That's a intuitive, natural movement that they know how to use to break their fascia and heal their bodies. Well, we as humans can do that too, right? And that's where tiger stretching comes into play. It's an intuitive form of contracted stretching designed to break fascia. Then you get into the muscular and skeletal system, and you utilize the mind to code your body to work in a way that aligns your fascia, so that when you take steps, when you walk, and you're practicing the most repetitive movement in the human nature, that you're doing it in a way that aligns your tissue and it doesn't compensate and traumatize that issue. If your psoas, which is 80% connective tissue, and it's the primary firing point for hip flexion and driving forward, it's your center. If that's off, and your glute's going to be off too. But if that's off, you're going to create a compensation trail. You're going to fire with your quad or your tib on hip flexion. And when you're stepping forward, that's going to create dense fascia in that area, and your trauma is going to store there, right? So in order to start to fix that, you have to redevelop that fascia mold. You have to break that fascia up, and that will clear the storage of your mind.
Yeah, sign me up. I get 30 years of rugby, 30 years of being a goalie, and
well, this is that's primarily what I work with. It's like, you look at conventional fitness, it's very, very different than what I've come to, because I've been pursuing what's optimal, and that's it. I'm not biased. I love lifting weights. I've realized in my later years that there's a ton of compromise to it, and I've evolved. You know what I mean? So I've done yoga, meditation. I've done sports performance. I've done every type of fitness, whereas many people do one, and I've just kept it open. What I've come to is the conclusion of this system. It's the nervous system. It's the computer that binds the fascia and shapes the body based on its experiences, whether it just be sitting in a chair for 9 hours and it molds your posture, or it be a traumatic PTSD type deal that locks up your back. It's your nervous system, connective tissue into the muscular and skeletal, but they all affect each other, because the way that you move at the muscular and skeletal level affects the way your tissue molds. If you
just a very general question here. So you go to your website, you sign up. Do you get like videos? Is that how this is done, through videos?
So, like I said, I had my own facility up until October, and I moved to Florida. And when I did that, I said, all right, part of the reason I wanted to is because I can do what I do online. I don't need barbells. I don't need a gym. I need to elevate people here in their understanding of how to execute it themselves, and build a fitness program that doesn't compromise this innate design. And I can do that by teaching. So now I'm going to be teaching people how to do this themselves and coaching them virtually. And so I've been building this system since I came down here. It's going really well. And for the first time, I'm satisfied with the organization of my knowledge and experiences. And by the end, by the time someone finishes that 12 weeks, I think they're going to understand it too. And if they can integrate that with healthy quality foods, they're going to set themselves up for a lifetime of pain-free movement. Not that bad things can't happen, but I think they're going to be much better off than just hammering conventional fitness. And I have 4 other programs off, but one of them is called the Tiger Rebalance, and that is a balance program for elderly people, and to prevent falls and prevent injury and surgeries, because elderly people have really dysfunctional feet. Nobody knew about this, and for years, those toe boxes and those high heels and everything were fucking just crushing their foot, destroying that. And so they're very susceptible to balance issues. And there's this app called the Sway Medical app. You just hold the phone on the chest. You stand with one foot, you stand with the other foot, and you stand like 1 foot behind the other foot. It gives you a balance score. First time I took this, I got a 99.5. So what I do works. I'm already balanced. I can prove that. And so if these people can increase their balance score on this app, they're going to reduce their probability of falling. This is called the Tiger Rebalance. And all it is educating them on the basics of feet, posture, and breath work. It's the breathing and the recode, and that's it. And then teaching them how to move a little bit, distribute weight. Like if you're stepping up the stairs, right? You got to splay that toe box. You can't have a crunched up foot like that, and then your weight over your right column when you're stepping with your left foot. You need to center your gravity, put your eye over your foot, and splay your toe. Now we can step up the stairs, right? And if they just knew a little bit of that, that's their training. It's not this squats and just move weights like this. They can develop that proprioception. That's gonna have a dramatic effect on them. So that's the rebalance. Then there's the new you, which is the recode and the rerun. Teaches people, reestablishes the forward locomotive gait cycle, which is what we're designed to be. That's what we are. Your health your physical health can be represented by how well you move forward, how well you sprint, and the level of intensity of health that you want should replicate what your goal is in your sprint. So if you're a high intensity athlete, it's your sprint. You got to be able to sprint well and healthy without getting sore in one area, without getting tight. It should enhance your being, not compromise your being. And then there's the enhanced athlete, which takes that shit to the next level. And then there's the beautiful being, which is a whole nother one that I'm pretty excited about. It's extremely unique and untouched approach to aesthetics and fitness. People pump weights and you see even girls, guys, whatever it is, with the butt too big or the shoulders up front, and they're just proportionally off, and their connective tissue is now extremely restricted. So the conventional methods of fitness have damaged their connective tissue and shaped their mold in a way that doesn't allow the energy flow in their field to project. And we're all fields of beings of energy and light. And so their energy field is suppressed by the connective tissue being bound up and restricted with their abilities, with their emotions, with their rigid lifestyle, right? So how do you unwind that and create the fluidity and energy flow to get their aura, their attractiveness as a human to flow, and comes down to quality of tissue. And quality of tissue comes through healthy fascia. If you have suppressed fascia, a muscle is not going to function to its full level of expansion and contraction. There's a webbing over it suppressing it. And a joint is not going to articulate the way it's supposed to. It's going to be held up, right? So in order to get that healthy function, we need healthy quality tissue, which is how we evaluate it. And that's done through the eccentric tiger stretching, which is that eccentric arcing motion designed to break fascia and then realign it with the recode through the Fibonacci sequence. And when we can set that, you're going to have energy flow throughout your body. You're going to have such healthy tissue. And I've seen this. And what actually triggered this was when I took the course years back. I remember that I was like the instructor. I walked in and good looking girl, but like not like a crazy bombshell. But she was so attractive. She was so attractive. And it was the tissue and the shape and the effortless restriction in her body's ability to move, and just like perfect posture, no restriction, not a lot of probability of injury, natural balance. You're naturally going to find the Fibonacci sequence and patterns when your body can function like that and you have that health of tissue. So that's what helps people glow. And I've seen that and felt it. And I've now built a program around it with Tiger Transformation. And then the last one's Tiger Transformation is the 12 steps that I listed earlier, which basically gives people the baseline knowledge of everything I'm talking about so that they can live their lives this way. They can move this way. And at 50 years old, get down to a resting squat and sprint if they want. Why train towards anything else? I understand the benefits of strength training. You get all of those with what I'm doing, but there's no compromise on your physiological design. You're not going to blow a hamstring. We got to avoid this. I look at it, it's like you can do a conventional fitness transformation. They can be ripped with abs, but their hips are tucked and their feet are flat and ankles crap, and they move really rigid. But the picture before and after looks good. That's not my clients. And my customer's going to come in and I'm going to teach them what I know so that they can live. And all of a sudden their evaluation is this confident dude that can sprint, that can do all this crazy stuff, and the aesthetics just come with it. But that's the energy flow. That's the attractiveness thing to me. I think a lot of people that are pursuing that in fitness are misconstrued. But yeah, essentially, I don't know what got me started on that rant.
So the rant started by him asking, "How do you work with the clients? Can people sign up? Can people sign up today?"
That was my answer to that. Oh my God, they're horrified. They're gonna go take the concepts and research it themselves. No, they can find me on my link tree, and they just they do a free consultation, and they book the free consultation. I'm gonna have new hours coming up when I launch this whole thing. But once I launch it, I'm creating another page on Instagram on everything. It's called Tiger Transformation. And because my 3-Eyed Tiger page talks about farming, fitness, food, music, Boom. So it's a lot for people if they're just trying to get fitness knowledge or understand my system. So I'm creating a new page. It's just for the fitness part. And they're going to be able to sign up for group transformational fitness and at a higher cost individual transformational fitness. And they just book it through Calendly. They go to the link tree on my bio on my Instagram, which is 3_eyed_tiger. And there they can find a time where they can book a free consultation. I get an email that says, hey, you got a consultation with him at this hour. Then I tell them what they do. They tell me their goals. And I say, okay, well, you should do the recode. You should do the new you, or you should do the Tiger rebalance. And then there'll be groups. So the Tiger Transformation Group, I don't know when I'm going to launch the first one, but it'll be 12 weeks. It'll be Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. And it'll be an hour education with a program that evolves. And every week, the new lesson is implemented into the program. So you start with just breathing. Then it's breathing and stretching. Then it's breathing, stretching, recode. Then it's breathing, stretching, recode, rerun. You start to run. Then it's, on top of that, changing levels. And you start to do drills for each of these in one routine that integrates that. And by the end, you have a 4-day transformational fitness program with everything inside and out. I'm telling people that are interested in fitness, don't go get a fitness certification. Just do this. Who cares about the certification? Just do this.
And you gotta love.
Yeah, I hope you don't separate it too much from everything else, because the whole food farming, in music, it does. This is the most holistic discussion around soil that I think I've ever been engaged in. Right? It's taking it right to points we don't usually think. But we started with the soil, and then went into the gut microbiome, and here we are recoding. So I think it's. I hope you don't separate the pages too much.
It never will. In my heart, it never will. It's just we need resources to make this happen, right? Like I need to be out. I'm trying to build this, but I've gone through 4 farms. I've had some issues in this and that, and it's like if I just had a product and I could be successful enough to build this and show people, they wouldn't have to think about it as much. Because for people like us, we get it. We're like, this is fantastic. This is it. But for most people, they're thinking I'm either nuts or they just can't resonate with it. So I think the fitness product could leverage and help drive the vision. You know what I'm saying? And be supportive of it. But I 100% will never, in my heart, will never do it. That's why it's Thunderdome. I opened a strip mall, I opened a studio and a gym. I've had the opportunity to open other strip malls. I've had many opportunities to build a career in fitness. That ain't it. That ain't it. It's this.
And what's most beautiful about this, Av, is the fact that he wants to teach other people how to do this and make a successful living for themselves. It's the anti-business. And
Thunderdome is the anti-business. It's conscious capitalism.
It's like your fish brew business.
Yeah. And same with my business. I mean, I tell people, I'll sell you a product, but I don't want to. I want to teach you how to do it yourself so you can teach other people how to do it. I don't have time in my life.
I'm trying to get Leighton to build a Tiger transformation for his soil process because his depth, his knowledge is so vast. He needs to get it down for everyone else to start utilizing. You know what I mean?
Well, that was the first step. Was what we did, buddy. Was that little pod or that little show or course?
Yeah, absolutely. And it came out really solid, and it's so applicable. It's so simple and applicable. So that was really a great first step in that.
Perky, do you have Av's contact information?
Do I have Av?
No.
How could I have Av's contact?
No, Perky. I was talking to Perky.
No.
Do you have? Because
I don't know.
All right, Ken, link Av and Perky together so he can send him the link to it, so he can. Av will understand what the fuck we're talking about.
For the soil part, he can get a 20% discount if he uses my code on the soil part. As for the health part, you're gonna have to work that out with Perky. Okay.
Yeah, it's on its way. It feels like it's picking up momentum for the first time, even though we've done a lot. Like I said, I've gone through 4 farms. I started constructing at one farm in the Cape. And that whole thing ended up imploding. But you know, I think that this vision has the potential to be very impactful, but not just impactful, but fun and passionate, and like it provide a lot of light and be a hub for people that really understand and awaken to this.
So Perky, one last time, just to be very clear, you have the fitness part of this up and running, and you're accepting appointments, or you're getting very close.
So I do accept appointments, but I haven't. I've been organizing this information into a package so that I can just have it all out and ready. You know what I mean? I've been building the system. So I haven't really launched the Tiger Transformation itself, the page, the organized process. I'm still cultivating it, but I've been taking clients. I mean, I work with clients still. I have clients, you know, that are just that I've trained in the past, that know my systems and stuff like that. But basically, any one of these programs now is going to follow this protocol. It's going to be the pieces of the Tiger Transformation that they need in order to achieve their goal. So, for example, the beautiful being is going to the first lesson is going to be about breath work. It's going to be breathing, and it's going to give you a program. You're going to start breathing every day. The second one's going to be about tiger stretching, starting to enhance and remodel your tissue, your connective tissue. The third one's going to be the recode. Now you're going to start your feet and rebuild strength and posture from the ground up and align with nature's mathematics when you move. Then it's going to go into the rerun, because the sprint system is the healthiest thing to cultivate. This is now the foundation and staple of your fitness. You train to sprint. And if you can't sprint, you're going to train to move forward better. Incline marches on the treadmill. If somebody can only walk, how well are we going to walk? And what challenge are we going to give ourselves in walking? That's going to be the staple. That's the healthiest human. Look at sprinters in the Olympics. Healthy, thick, strong, jacked, mobile. Look at marathon runners. Yikes. Not great, right? Then the next lesson in that is the transformational fitness, so they can build a little bit of muscle and tone. But they're going to know how to do that without compromising the design, without damaging their connective tissue, and keeping healthy, flourishing tissue. Those 5 lessons will be the beautiful being. It's a 12-week process. The first 5 sessions are that. And then every week it's about how we're changing the model and we're enhancing that process. Right. So I pulled those lessons from the Tiger Transformation, because that's the lessons. The lessons are in order for a reason. Right. If you to do the faster, you really need to do the breathing. To have the freedom to mold your tissue and move right, you have to have broken up healthy tissue. Right. And then to be able to strike, swing, and produce power in a stationary place, you need to know how to create a base. Right. So there's a process that each of these programs will pull from the Tiger Transformation and integrate into each of them specifically.
All right. So we got about 7 minutes and 15 seconds left. Ken, are there any questions that popped up that I didn't notice, and if not, let's wind it down with congratulations, Perky, on getting this far and getting close to launch, the full launch. And
thank you.
Av, any final thoughts on your part, Av?
I hate to ask this question. This is that just before you wanted to not go into a rabbit hole. The idea of music, and I've asked this question a few other times. The difference between analog and digital. Have you given it some thought in where you want people to be, what you want to be also feeding nature, feeding the plants? What type of analog or digital music do you want to get out to your plants and yourself?
Well, for first, brainwaves, monitoring brainwaves and how they react to different vibrations and frequencies, which a lot of people have dove into, right? And we know that certain frequencies can activate certain brainwaves and brain states, whether it be alpha, beta, theta, right? And in a healing process, you want to enter certain states to achieve certain things, and whether it be changing a mindset of emotional or a manifestation or something like that. In order to access that, I read the book, The Mind Control Method by, I forget his name, but it's a lot about visualization, but it's all about entering a certain brainwave to be able to visualize and having the relaxation, shutting down your sensory system to do that. So when it comes to something like healing, we know that utilizing sound to enter a certain mental state is going to be able to allow us to access our body at a different level. And so music can play a massive role. I think more and more, music is going to become a part of healing. It's very hard for people to grasp right now, but it's music and vibrations. There's vibrational tables and like there's this thing called the Electron Plus, where they hook up electricity, like a masseuse would hook up electricity. A lot of people in the sports world are starting to use this, and they'll massage people with an electronic pulse and a vibration, right? And then you look at some of the old physical therapy methods, they're utilizing vibration. I think we're going to learn how to use vibration in this next era, and music's going to play a huge part of that. Not to mention, I have a whole perspective on conventional music versus healing music and what it does to people's mindsets and what it embodies and the character that it brings out of them. Obviously, I think there's compromise there, and I think that the way Hollywood does some weird stuff, they do some weird stuff in that realm too.
Don't forget bells.
Gongs.
Yeah, healing instruments that humanity ever came up with. And
yeah,
a lot of sound therapy is all related around vibration.
So every day at the Thunderdome, and I had this at my facility up north, but no one came. I never got one person to come, but I had sound healing meditation. You walk in, I run you through 3 minutes of breath work to get you started, and I tell you how to breathe throughout the rest of it. And then we just put on deep relaxation music. There's also breathing with tempo. I do box breathing and something called tiger triangles, which can be done to tempo if it's on 4s and 8s and 16s. That's how beats work. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it allows people to structure their breath in a way that they can progress, right? So you start with 4 seconds in, 8 seconds hold, or 8 seconds exhale, 8-second hold. That's going to increase your CO2 levels. And then if you can do that at 6, 12, 12, 8, 16, 16, 10, 20, 20, over time, you're not even realizing it, but it's getting easy and you're progressing in a way that your entire breath and your respiratory system is changing through rhythm.
So I don't think we actually answered the question, Perky, whether it should be a digital or it should be analog, because
both frequency. What is it producing? What frequency is it producing? And the really cool thing about digital and technology and music is, I've tried to explain this to Leighton before too. He gets it, but some of the past generation has trouble getting it because music was so different. But there can be all sorts of music produced. It's not always just EDM like that. Digital can produce really powerfully vibrational music and really healing music. And so, you had Beethoven back in the day, and music was like, cool. It was like unbelievable. And then you had all these different eras where different music started to grow. And then the 70s came and electronics came and all the rock and roll got to here. And then you got the 80s and the 90s, and things are starting to expand into the 2000s when the digital era and computers were born. And then it went like this. It's now infinite in the direction, the possibilities, the ability to produce it. So I think the digital era will end up, coming up with some stuff that we might not have been able to reach just playing instruments and everything. But then there's also going to be that live harmonic human to human connection of playing instruments. So I think both will be used. It'll be turned on the frequency and in how it's made and in the goal of what they're trying to heal. But I think having live concerts where people are jamming and then digital super technology to get us quicker to where we need to be. Some people put headphones on and it enters them into a state with certain frequencies really quick.
I think you definitely answered the question. He's going, yes, thank you. Somebody finally answered that question. The only other one we really had was from Fruit and Gas. He's in Florida, and he was wondering, where the area is that you are in Florida, so he can reach out.
Yeah, awesome. Please do. I'm in St. Petersburg. I did my research. I was up in Boston. I did my research around the country. I said, I'm going to move somewhere warm. I want to grow foods here year round. And after failing with 4 towns of building this vision, I said, I need to build it and make it a little virtual camp that I can just express this message and do my product every day. And so I bought a house down here with 0.3 acres, a nice little backyard. And this backyard's mint. I'm going to have a 20-foot dome up here relatively soon. And the second I have that, in Florida, you can have people at your house for business. So I'm going to take clients in there and do my manual work, which is essentially nervous system, connective tissue, and fascia. It's assisted stretching, assisted faster braking, which I have yet to see anything that's matched that. It's very hard to do it on your own. It's intricate, but doing it assisted, the depth is wild.
He
It's
kicked
very,
my
very
fucking
intense.
ass. Remember, you kicked my fucking ass when you did that.
Oh yeah, I worked on late one day. Yeah.
Straighten me right the fuck out.
Yeah.
I think I better stay away from him. He'll hurt me.
Yes, it can be kind of
It's
uncomfortable.
not the most comfortable. It's very intense. But I've got a lot better at it over the years and just minimize the compromise. But yeah, I'm gonna have a Thunderdome up in my yard here. It's gonna have a water collection system with a self-feeding garden, and hopefully get a couple of chickens so I can film and show what I'm talking about.
Beautiful. Well, guys, we're at the 2-hour mark, so I think we're gonna shut her down here. We're definitely gonna have you back on, Perky, because you have so much more to that you can talk about. And we never got into Leighton's experiment with the the Roundup on his yard. That's why I was trying to break in earlier to get that out. But that is going to be, I think, in the chorus or on your website for the chorus, so people can check that out. But Leighton, you are a brilliant man, and working with Perky, I can see why you brought him in to help you put the chorus together. I think you guys are absolutely phenomenal.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Right back at you, Ken.
Yeah,
right back at you.
Second all that. Thanks so much.
And you too, Ab. Thanks.
Yeah,
Cheers,
thanks so
audience.
much, Ab. It's great to meet you.
But okay, I'm breaking in. You guys, I'm cutting you off. I'll put you on mute. So shh. For our audience, thank you so much for being here. And yes, like, subscribe to the channel, but also share. We need more people coming to the channel to find this stuff. And you guys are the power of the people that can get this information out. And we love you all. We respect you all. So help us out, and we're gonna continue doing this and helping you guys. So we love you all, guys. Peace out, and we will see you on Monday as well. So don't miss Madame Cannoli, and we want to support her. And with the Frenchie's film that's coming out, we're going to be talking about that on Monday.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Okay, guys.
Much love.